Alright, so what we're going to be tying here is what's called a traveling sedge. Oh, there we go. It's just it's a form of caddis. It's an emerging pattern. And it's got some neat features to it. And so that's what we're going to tackle here. To start off, I got a number 12 curved shank hook, lightning strike SE1, size 12 in the vise. I've tied these on straight shanks too. I just don't care for the way they look quite as much. I think the curved shank sets it off a little better. For thread, I'm just going to be using some uni thread 8/0 in black. And we'll get started. I'm going to start my thread right where the thorax is going to begin. So about 2.5 to 3 bodkin widths behind the eye. And I'll just take my thread back a little ways and snap off the thread. And as I get to about the hook point, I'm going to tie in some fluorescent fire crystal flash on the bottom side here. I'm going to keep that guy underneath. And I'm going to take this down into the bend a little bit. And I just tie on the full piece, and then I'll kind of pull off a few inches. Maybe 3 or 4, something I can handle. And I'll just trim that out instead of handling the whole thing. We're going to have five ribs coming up, so 3 inches is plenty. Next, I'm going to wax my thread. Back part of this fly is actually pretty easy. A little bit of rib, a little dubbing, and we're good to go. You get to the front half, it can get a little more complicated. But it's not too bad if you just kind of take your time with it. So for dubbing, I'm using SLF. This is an olive brown. And just gonna get this guy started here. Turn or 2 in. And then I can work the dubbing a little better once I have a turn or 2 in. Whoop. It's always part of the hazard of shooting video in front of you. It's starting to come off. This stuff can be a little slick, so you may have to take your time with it if you're using SLF. You can really use whatever you want here. Match your hatch or whatever. Oop, there we go. There we go. Seems like once you get the SLF going, it likes to go. Getting it started can be a little tricky though. Doesn't always want to stick. And we're going to take this up to where the thread started with just a slight taper. Love these synthetic dubbings, but boy, they be a little tricky to dub. But they pull off easy. You can leave all that scruffy McGruff on for the moment. I guess you can trim it away. I'm going to trim this back a little bit out here. There we go, just so I get my first wrap in. Next, I'm going to take the crystal flash. I'm going to start to rib this guy forward. You want 4 to 5 turns on the rib. So when you're dubbing this, when it gets all crazy and you bring your rib forward, that rib can lock some of those fibers down, and then you can kind of just trim it all out at once. So I'll just take any, well, actually I'll lick my fingers, get them a little damp, and just pull up any extra fiber and trim it off. You can leave it a little shaggy if you want. Okay. Something about like that looks pretty good. Next, what we need to do is put in kind of like the leg, or the legs. And what I'm going to use for the legs, they're going to be orange. And I'm going to use a orange mallard, an orange or amber dyed mallard flank, as it were. I think the original pattern calls for orange or amber pheasant tail. But I kind of like the look of these personally, but the others are good too. So what I'm going to do is I strip off all the fuzz off the back of the feather. And I'm going to separate everything so that I have bare stem in the middle there. I should say separate everything evenly so I have bare stem in the middle. Then I'm going to trim that out. Trim the tip off. And I'm going to do the same technique again, where I'm pulling them apart to get to bare stem, where I have some sticking out the front like so, and some sticking out the back. You want to have even fibers if possible, and so you can kind of just pull that maneuver. Next, I'm going to invert the fly. It's easier to do it that way, and we want these legs to stick out behind the barb, or I'm sorry, behind the bend. And so I'm just going to lay that over. Now, if you have a really long mallard flank feather, you can tie this on and then just gently draw back by pulling and kind of pinching to guide the two sides of the feathers where you want them. I'm gonna this may take just a second. You want these kind of sitting on one on either side, or one set on either side. Nope, missed it. And when you think you have it, pull up. Don't pull down. Okay. And we kind of arrange it. Whoop. Alright, one more try. Part of my problem is my feather is extremely crooked, or bent, concaved, as it were. So those ones can be a little extra extra challenging. Now, once I have them out the back, I want them to kind of lay along the belly of the fly, sort of like that. That'll work. And now I want to wrap this in going forward, and I can trim out the stem. Cool. And you can tease these out here if you want to get them to separate a little bit. They're going to probably want to go back together a little bit. So you can kind of glue them open if you wanted to, just by separating like this, kind of getting them in place where you really want them. So they're sitting about like that. And then just add a touch of glue up top, let it soak down into this area right here. And so yeah, so you should be sitting something about like that. Mine are actually riding just a fuzz high, but fuzz higher than I think they should, but hey, it is what it is, right? Alright, so next comes a little bit of the tricky part. So I'm going to take my thread, I'm going to advance it back to the rear. I'm going to meet it up with the dubbing. There we go. Now they're kind of coming down. And then next what I want are if possible, a left and right mallard quill. And what we're looking for are these little tip sections, right there, these little tip sections right here. And we want them to be evenly spaced, or an even amount from either side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the feathers together kind of like so. Now sometimes you'll work the concave side, sometimes you work the convex side. It just depends, because what we're looking to do is have the curvature or the bow inside each feather. If you can kind of see, there's like a little bow there. I want that bow sitting in so that the bow hugs the shank. So whichever way they're bowed in, that's what side it should sit on. So this is, you kind of see it, kind of get a flavor of what I'm saying. So as this is bowed, and I want it to sit in like this so that it hugs the shank. Okay, fair enough. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of line these up, and you can see I've already taken some out of here, and I try to get the tips somewhat aligned. And then the easy way to go about this, well, there's two kind of easy ways to go about it. One is you can put your finger right behind here and get something that's kind of pre-gauged, like a pair of tweezers, and run it through both like that to just open them up so that you can get to them to cut them out. And I moved it a little. Okay. The other one is with a bodkin, where you basically do the same thing. And I'll just take that bodkin, I know you can't see that very well. I'll take my bodkin and I'll put it right on my finger, and I'll just draw them apart. So that now I've got them sitting, and there's a little split in there. Now you can grab each side, keeping them together, and these are going to be pretty close to the same. I think I've got a barb difference or so on the one. And that's okay. I mean, they don't have to be perfect, but you want them to be close to the same. So there's both of them sitting like that. Now the easy way to do this, if you want to be cool and slick about it, you can slip them both down just like so and tie them in. It can be a little challenging for sure. So what I'll do is I'll take the side that's got the bow to it, or the concave side, and I'll start on my far side. And where we're looking to have these sit is somewhere between like the hook point and the barb itself. And they're going to run right along the side. Now I like to actually have the feather, or the barbs of the feather, to where they're pointing up. So I'm going to turn my vise to the side, and I'll see if I can show you it sitting on the side. Now I'm going to run this a little long to the back. And I'm just going to kind of pinch it in place. I'm going to put 2 loose wraps over and just gently tighten so that they're sitting about like that. I really have no pressure on my thread here. Whoop, getting a little fuzzy there. Next, I'm going to start to adjust everything so that these are sitting on the side. And I'm going to do this one side at a time. And I'm going to gently kind of lift up. If you pull it forward, what's going to happen is, and mine's already started to do it, so you can see the thread's moving forward if you pull this way. If you lift up, you can kind of help keep that thread in the position that you want it. And I'm almost there, but not quite. Oh, that was a big jump. There we go. Yeah, I've got my length or my distance, but now I want them down kind of on the side. Like so. So they're sitting about like that. So they're kind of, to some degree, encasing the whole underneath part. I'm still probably just a fuzz long here. If you pull too much or too hard, these things will really get away from you. So that when you're said and done, you have something about like that. I probably pulled a little too much and it kind of collapsed it a little bit, but that's okay. So next I'm going to go to the other side. Same thing. 2 loose wraps. I'm going to pull up. I'm going to lift up and pull. Whoa, I did not just do that. I did totally just do that. That's okay. You're probably going to do that too. At least once. You're not tying if you don't do that once. Alright. There we go. And now you can tighten down. That one slid a little off. That's okay. If they slide a little off, don't worry about it. So you should have something that's sitting about like that. Next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thread, bring it forward to about a bodkin width behind the eye. I'm going to trim all of this stuff out here. And we're going to tighten all this down. Tie it in, clean it up a little bit. And I'm actually going to build a little head right now. Like, say like you're going to finish your fly, like you normally finish a fly, and you build your little head at the end. We're going to build our head right now, because we are not going to finish the fly behind the eye. Okay, so you should be sitting about something like that. They don't have to be perfect. They're fishing flies, man. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add our thorax in. And what I'm using for thorax is black rabbit mask dubbing. It's just rabbit mask that I cut off and essentially grinded it up and turned it into dubbing. And we don't need a whole lot here. This may seem a little counterintuitive, but we are going to dub back to everything else. I got a little bit much. So I'm going to get a couple turns in there. I got way much. There we go. Thin that out a little bit. And so we're going to just dub right on back until we meet up with the abdomen area. Another little twist, another little turn. And then once we're back to where we started, I'm going to come forward just a little. It's hard to tell with all that hair's mask in the way. Like so. Okay, almost done with this fly. Next, what you need is just a black piece of foam. And clean all the geef off of it if you've been sitting on the table like mine has. Now, we don't need a lot here. If you have something that's the length of the body, that's plenty. When it comes to the size of the foam, basically I kind of shoot for maybe a little less than between the hook point and the bottom of the fly. So I'm going to trim this guy in half. And I want to go ahead and I just got tying material everywhere. It's coming on all the tools. I'm going to trim just a sliver off my side here. So I've got something about like that. Next, I'm going to place it right on top of where my thread is. And I don't think I said that, but the thread should be halfway between where the thorax started and the back of the eye. And I'm just going to put about, half dozen turns in or so. Don't need much, kind of tighten down. Your foam should pop open. If you have a bunch sticking out the front, you're going to need to kind of trim that back a little bit. We don't want a whole lot there. So you can actually kind of trim this to size right now if you need to. Oop. Something about like that. And now it's time to whip finish. We're going to whip finish right where we are. Right in the middle. I'll put about 5 or 6 in. Now, when you do this, if you run out of a bunch of thorax before you cut your thread, one thing you can do is, if you've tied a bunch of that down, is you can go back to your dubbing and get a little bit more hare's mask and just put, 2 or 3 turns in and whip finish it again with about 3 turns. Don't overdo it a second time. So that's one thing you can do. I'm going to trim out these long guard hairs. I'm going to kind of position this thing right on top. And next what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to trim all these corners at an angle. So kind of just like so. Oh, it kind of turned out a little funky, but that's okay. How much foam should you leave? That's a good question. I know that you're wondering that in your mind, or if you weren't, you are now. Enough to where you can keep this fly somewhat submerged, or to the depth that you want it, right? You may want it to swim a little bit deeper. You may want it to be right on top. If you want it to be on top, add some more foam. If you want it a little deeper, take it away. And you can always come in and pick out your underbody here. Don't need a lot, just a little. Something like that. And then to finish this guy off, what I'll do is I'll take some crazy glue or super glue or whatever your favorite is, and I'll just put some right on top of the foam and the thread. Just like that. If you're encroaching on your eye a little bit, you can take your bodkin and you can kind of squeeze all that in there, push it back a little bit to open up your eye. That's about all the tricks I can show you on this one. It's actually a pretty easy fly to tie, with the exception of those mallard wings. They can, or the mallard quills. They can play a little bit of a number on you. So anyway, give this fly a try. Take it out, fish it, see how you like it. So if you have found this video and you're not a part of our Facebook group, Fly Tying for Beginners, we'd love to have you. There's 4 questions. You answer those and you're in. Simple as that. We do a lot of fun stuff over there. We have tying classes. This video is a part of those. We have international fly swap. We've done giveaways. We just kind of do some fun stuff. We have weekly challenges, just personal challenges. No winners or losers, just something to kind of help push your fly tying forward. And so we'd love to have you there. Fly Tying for Beginners over at Facebook. If you liked the video, I hope you did. I would really appreciate it if you subscribe, give it a thumbs up. Like and share. And other than that, happy tying, everybody. We'll see you next time. Take care.